Anyway, we're live on the
Oh, I
Egg.
know the band. I know that band.
You know
I know
that
that
band.
band.
We were talking about a band off air,
Yeah.
but we're live now. And I see that while we were off air, we have a new follower named Game Lover 01. So welcome to the tribe, Game Lover 01. Thank you for the follow. As you can see down the bottom there, we have a green blob and a brown blob. And joining green blob and brown blob and myself is our brand new level 1 judge, Cora Stobie. Thank you so much for joining us, everybody. Thank you for joining us, Cora. The green blob, by the way, is Brad. He's a level 2 judge. We'll talk to him later. And the brownie blob is, everybody knows, Conscript or Rob Wild from Top Deck, otherwise known as Beer Lovers, but apparently that's a lie.
Now stop saying that. Get me into more trouble.
I just like the idea of, beer lovers. We'll go play Magic and drink some beer. But that's all good. I see we have some peeps in chat. Hello, Kamikaze Badger. Hello, Zoe. Although Zoe was there before everything started, so that's kind of like cheating. But it's okay because she's allowed. We will allow it. But as usual, before we get crack-a-lackin' on all things that we want to chat about this evening. Sorry, my daughter just yelled something from halfway down the house. I don't even know what she said, but that's okay. We have to give a shout out to the Eggies Knees, to our patrons. We want to say a big thank you to you guys for your support. It means the world to us. We have Zoe is an Eggie. Our uncommon Eggies are the Jolly Orange Bunny, Ricardo Leon, Ratcatcher, Manfred McKechnie, Kyle Lothian, Clinton Riddle, Ivan Crockett, and Clippies. Our rare Eggies are Niels Claassen, Ken Duff, Fist of Sons, Clayton Bucker, Christopher Crane, Christoph Swartz, Robert Wild, Stefan Engelbrecht, Kamikaze Badger, and Craig the Hungry Monkey. And I just got through the whole list before it revolved. So now I'm out of breath. I need to breathe for just a moment. But the list is getting longer, and that's awesome. We want to say thank you so much for your support. It truly is amazing to have the kind of support that you guys give us. And we hope that we continue to do cool stuff that you like. Somebody's moving something. Conscript, stop it. I was going to blame Rob for everything. He's just start now.
It was me.
Blame him as it goes.
I had to stretch.
Do I pay the one to disallow Zoe from being in chat? No, I do not pay the one. But wait, Bigger Claassen is here. Okay, so let's give everybody a little bit of background about tonight and why we have these cool peoples on our show this evening. On Wednesday of last week, we played Commanders. And in Commanders, a certain interaction took place. And now to do this properly without making a total poop of myself and forgetting everything that happened, I need to jump into something that Cora made, which I'm going to pop up over here for myself, because then I can remember what the cards say. So at one point, there were a whole bunch of creatures on the board, and I cast a chain reaction for 17. There were 17 creatures on the board, so it's chain reactions X equals 17, and it was going to do like a crap ton of damage and destroy everything. And Ty on the board had
17 and back.
Yes. Crap ton of 17. Ty had his commander, who was the Scorpion God, on the battlefield at the time. And so in response to my chain reaction, he cast Supernatural Stamina. Now, Supernatural Stamina is an instant. And that instant says, until the end of turn, target creature gets +2/+0 and gains, when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. On the Scorpion God, after its other text, it's got a final piece of text that says, when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. And here is where our confusion as players sort of came into it. The initial play, which turns out to have been the right play, but we'll come to that in a moment, was that the Scorpion God gets +2/+0 and gains, when this creature dies, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. That resolves onto the Scorpion God. Then the chain reaction resolves, killing all the creatures, putting the Scorpion God into Ty's graveyard. But the instant then resolves, bringing it back tapped onto the battlefield. Where the mistake we made came in is after that, there was an argument saying that surely then, because the Scorpion God's other text says when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Then on the beginning of my end step, we said, okay, the Scorpion God needs to go back to Ty's hand. So that was the argument. I think a lot of that, Rob, I'm going to bring you in here because I think this is where you had your 10 cents in this particular interaction.
My bad.
Where you thought, and if maybe you want to explain your rationale as to why you thought that, because at the time when we were discussing it during the game, it did make sense, but it's incorrect. but it did make sense in a way.
Yeah, so the way I sort of interpreted or saw it was that because of the additional text that the Scorpion God gained when he died and then subsequently returned, it was the same instance of that Scorpion God. So normally when a card changes zones, it forgets everything else about it, about its previous wherever it was. And so in my mind, for it to be able to return, it had to recognize that it was the same Scorpion God to be able to still have the text or see the text that brought it back from the graveyard, which then in my mind, the follow-up text on the Scorpion God, which was, if it died, return it, was still looking at that one going, yes, you did die because I see you. And I saw that you went to the graveyard and you've come back to this, to the battlefield. So you must now go to hand, which is really my logic around how it was worded and how everything happened. So it made perfect sense that that should happen.
Okay.
Which I think is the gist of it all.
All right. So, Cora, do you want to take us through why? Well, do you want to take us through, first of all, the ruling on objects that change zones, and then why it was supposed to happen the other way, where the Scorpion God was supposed to remain on the battlefield tapped, not go back to owner's hand?
Sure. So I'm going to bring up a slideshow that I've made.
Cool.
And
I'm going to put it on here so people can see it. There we go. It's up.
Oh, there you go.
okay, so
Oh no, I'm all right. I put it up
Sorry
yeah,
about
this is what.
I don't know if you can hear, but there are people walking through my office right now. I'm going to mute my side.
No worries. Okay. Well, I was about to ask you, this should look similar to the situation described. These are the 3 cards involved. So we have the Scorpion God, Chain Reaction for X equals 17, and Supernatural Stamina cast in response on the Scorpion God. So what happens from here, I guess we've already actually spoken about the end result. If you have a look at the comprehensive rules, to understand why this happens in this way, there's 2 different things that are happening here. There's a delayed trigger that's being set up from the Scorpion God. So the Scorpion God's final ability is when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. That's a delayed trigger. So when it dies, this is going to be set up to happen at the end of the turn. Then if you look at the ruling for delayed triggers, a delayed triggered ability that refers to a particular object still affects it even if the object changes characteristics. However, if that object is no longer in the zone it's expected to be in at the time the delayed triggered ability resolves, the ability won't affect it. Note that if that object left that zone and then returned, it's a new object and thus won't be affected. This is associated with Rule 400.7, which is the rule about when objects change zones. So an object that moves from one zone to another becomes a new object with no memory of or relation to its previous existence. So that's all it really boils down to. Scorpion God is being put into the graveyard, it's dying. This delayed trigger is going up, that would check if it's in the graveyard and then would return it. But then Supernatural Stamina is returning it from the graveyard to play immediately. And so the delayed trigger doesn't happen because the object is no longer in the graveyard. So if we look at the Gatherer page, and I'd always recommend having a look at Oracle text and the rulings on Gatherer to see if an interaction is actually covered. So if we look up the Scorpion God, we see I've just put a pink box around exactly the situation, which is if this creature dies but leaves the graveyard before the next end step, it will remain in its new zone. Okay. Cool. So yeah, in conclusion, for this particular scenario, the Scorpion God returns to the battlefield tapped due to Supernatural Stamina, and then it does not return to hand at the end of turn as it has left the graveyard and it's a new object. And that's kind of that. But now I've got some more examples that we could go into. Crispin, do you want to stop there and have Rob pick questions first?
First of all, just to say thank you so much. That's a really, it's a lot of effort to put into for a very small discussion. So I just want to say thank you for putting that there and for clearing that up. Brad, we're 100% not that I'm naysaying anything Cora said, but just to sort of reaffirm from your point of view, Cora's spot on, yeah?
100%. Cora, I can't say it better than Cora saying it right now.
Okay. All right, sweet. And then just a quick hello to some people in chat. Hello, 10 Street. It's okay. You don't need to be sorry you're late. It's fine. Rob, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to ask a quick question with regards to the Scorpion God interactions then. So when it goes to the graveyard, for whatever reason, whatever kills it, now it's changed zones, so it's a new version of itself in the graveyard. Am I right?
Yes.
So how will its last ability ever resolve then if it doesn't, if it's looking at a different entity or whatever you want to call it, a different instance?
So the delayed triggered ability is set up when the Scorpion God dies. That is when it's put into the graveyard from the battlefield. Okay. So when that happens, it's saying this object that's been put in the graveyard, we're going to look at it at the beginning of the next end step. If it's still here, it will return to its owner's hand.
So it's still looking at it as an object, even though the other rules that we've discussed say that it becomes a different instance of itself.
Not quite.
Just for clarity.
As you're putting it into the graveyard, that's when the delay trigger is set up. So it's in the graveyard. As we're setting this up,
but the delay trigger is looking at the Scorpion God.
It's looking at the one in the graveyard. Yeah, it's the one that's being put into the graveyard, is setting it up and saying, if this thing is still in the graveyard at the beginning of the next end step, then I'll return its hand with this trigger.
But with the previous rules, where it says when a thing changes zones, it forgets anything about its previous self. So how does it remember? How does the delayed trigger remember that this is that Scorpion God?
Can I make a query on this as well? Just if we go back to the card itself, when the card says when the Scorpion God dies, could also be worded as when the Scorpion God goes to the graveyard. I mean, you can understand it that way.
Dies means that.
But that's the point. So it's the delay. I think Corey, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the because the delayed trigger is set up when this card name goes into the graveyard, it's looking at this card in the graveyard. It's not looking at the one that went to the graveyard. It's looking at the one in the graveyard.
Yes, Crispin, that is correct. So when the Scorpion God dies, return it to its owners at the beginning of the next end step. It's not referring to the instance of the card that is on the battlefield. It's referring to the instance of the card that goes into the graveyard, that is in the graveyard. So it's got.
So this is after the zone change.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a trigger that happens when it dies. So for the creature to have died, it needs to have gone to the graveyard already. Then the trigger can resolve. It comes down to when you check state-based actions and when triggers resolve.
Okay, so it's not so much that this one was on the battlefield and went to the graveyard. It's more that this one went to the graveyard.
Yes.
So it's I don't know. I don't want to say it's a timing thing, but it's this trigger happens after the zone change.
When the Scorpion God dies, that is the triggered ability. That ability triggers. Now we've got to finish doing what the rest of the thing says, or what other state-based actions are happening. Once we check all the state-based actions, then we can put the triggers on the stack. So the Scorpion God is in the graveyard before the ability triggers, or before the ability goes on the stack. The ability is triggered already.
So before return it to...
It is timing, but it's also not quite timing.
So return it to its owner's hand triggers after the Scorpion God has gone to the graveyard.
triggers when it goes to the graveyard.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then it gets put on the stack after a whole bunch of other state-based actions and technicalities happen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And then I've got one last question about this.
Really, Rob?
So
Come on.
the last thing was about. I know I got it wrong, but I'm just trying to understand
I'm totally
I
messing
went
with
wrong.
you. Ask away.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I know. So the next thing is the Scorpion God's ability doesn't say that it has to be in the graveyard for it to be returned to hand. So when we had the previous text ruling about things being where they're technically supposed to be, does that apply to this specifically? Because this, what am I trying to say here? Because in that 603.7c, where it says, however, if that object is no longer in the zone it's expected to be in, at the time the delayed trigger resolves, the ability won't affect it. So because it went to another zone after that delayed trigger happened, that's what I'm just trying to figure out. So is it again? Is it purely because of the zone change?
So when the Scorpion God died, we set up the delayed trigger that will check at the end of turn.
Yeah.
Triggers the end of turn. And before that happens, we've changed zones. We've brought it back with supernatural stamina on the battlefield. Okay.
Yeah.
So at the end of turn, when that trigger goes off, it's not in the graveyard anymore. And because it's changed zones, this ability won't affect it.
So just one last question. Mm-hmm. So if it had left the graveyard and then somehow come back to the graveyard before that trigger resolved, would it be returned to hand?
Not in this case.
Not. So you're looking for that specific Scorpion God that died. That one that we put into the graveyard has the trigger attached to it. You can take the physical card and put it in and out of your graveyard as many times as you want. It's never going to be that same specific instance.
Cool. All right. That clears up all my questions.
There is a pretty cool example I've got later on that will show a way that you can do that kind of reaction, Rob.
Okay, hold on a sec. I just want to read some things from chat quickly so we can just clear up what's going on here. Bigger Clausen says, so even if it hit the graveyard, the instant would pull it out of the graveyard and the trigger would check for the card in the graveyard and it's not there. That's correct, right? That's the correct interpretation of what it is. So even...
Perhaps...
Yeah,
I should just clarify, it's not checking for the card because we're looking for the object.
Correct.
Because now, as Rob just pointed out, it's gone... If it goes in and out of the graveyard several times, the cards might still be there, but it's not the same object.
Correct. It's looking for that object that was put there on that trigger. Okay. So then, for example, just on this, so we clear this one up. So let's say, for example, it's Ty's commander, it dies, the end step trigger goes on the stack, but Ty decides to move the Scorpion God from the graveyard to the command zone. At the end of the next turn, then the Scorpion God would not go back to his hand. It would stay in the command zone because it's not in the zone that the trigger is looking for it to be in. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, cool. Groovy. Okay.
So now we got that out of the way. Let's look for a slightly
more
complex.
Anybody got any more questions on this one? Because as far as I can tell, this is like the most simple version of what we're about to get into.
Well, the next one's also pretty simple.
Okay, so Cora, take it away.
Okay, so similar situation, but we're going to replace supernatural stamina with Aetherios God of Passage. Say the Scorpion God's part of a God tribal deck, because these exist in Commander. Again, we're casting the chain reaction for X equals 17. What happens here?
Log in relation to white and black is less than 7. Whenever another creature you own dies,
What does
return to the
Athreos
land
say?
that's
So Athreos, the relevant ability here is whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life.
Would it okay? Would it not depend on? Were you able to stack these triggers?
Sort of. So both triggers might go off. So it's a fairly simple scenario where again we've got the chain reaction dealing 17 damage and Scorpion God dying.
Sure.
When the Scorpion God dies, we have a triggered ability set up. That's the Scorpion God's ability. And then we also have Athreos triggering immediately.
So
So
the
Athreos-
Scorpion Gods is a delayed trigger, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So what happens is immediately we get Athreos asking us to target a player, target an opponent, and they get to either pay 3 life or we get to return the Scorpion Guard to our hand.
Right.
Once that decision has been made, the Scorpion Guard is either going to be in our hand or in the graveyard still.
Correct.
At the end of the turn, if the Scorpion Guard is in the graveyard, then its triggered ability will go off and return it to our hand anyway.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes
Makes
sense.
sense.
We cool with that?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Okay, you agree this
That makes-
not too
perfect
different?
sense.
Yeah, no,
Cool.
that's cool.
Okay, so now I'm going to go for some more complex examples. We're going to look at slightly different things. So focusing
Hey, Rob,
on...
remember that conversation about we should be judges and take the test and stuff? Here we go, boy. Judges 101.
No,
So we're just
sports
gonna-
brew.
We're just going to look at these objects changing zones. Okay.
Cool.
So in this example, Alberta has an Omnath Locus of Creation in play. She casts Genesis Ultimatum and chooses to put 5 forests into play. She then plays a Fabled Passage as the land for turn and sacrifices it to fetch a forest. What happens?
Wow.
This question is largely inspired because the deck that did this ran all of these cards and was banned out of Historic. It was also a standard deck as well at the time. But it was just such a powerhouse of a deck. It was trying to abuse something here that we're going to get into.
Okay, so, I mean, essentially what's going to happen is when she puts the 5 forests into play, Alberta, she's going to get... Wow.
All the triggers.
All the triggers from Omnath.
How many triggers?
How many is all the triggers?
Well, there isn't anything that goes over the 3rd time for Omnath.
So I think Omnath has got 4 triggers.
Whenever a land enters the battlefield
So
under control,
the-
you gain 4 life. Okay, so she's going to gain 4 life 5 times.
Keep reading the
No.
ability.
If this is the first time it's resolved, if
No, so it's going to
if
just
the second time,
resolve
the third
each of
time-
them once until there's no abilities left.
Yeah, so it's going to go.
Yeah.
The first forest's going to give her 4 life. The second forest's going to give her 4 different kinds of mana. The third time, she's going to deal 4 damage to each opponent, each planeswalker she doesn't control. The 4th and 5th time, and the Fabled Passage isn't really going to do much.
They're not going to do anything.
Yeah. Is that right?
Brad, did you want to have some input here?
I think you can carry on with this.
Okay, so landfall triggers for each land put on to the battlefield. So there's going to be 5 triggers put on the stack with Genesis Ultimate and putting the 5 forests into play.
Okay.
Only the first 3 are going to actually do something, but each of the lands is going to add a trigger to the stack. Okay.
Okay.
The Fabled Passage has similar effects. It's going to put the 6th trigger later on, after the 5 are finished resolving, onto the stack. Again, it's not going to do anything noticeable. And fetching the forest will add another trigger that will, again, not do anything here.
Nothing, yeah.
Okay, happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. So now, what if,
Oh,
after the Genesis Ultimatum, Alberta then casts Ephemerate targeting Omnath before playing the Fabled Passage and sacrificing it to fetch a forest. What happens here?
Then you'll get 2 landfall triggers. The first 2.
Hold on. When is she playing the Ephemerate?
After the Genesis Ultimatum, before the Fabled Passage is played for turn.
So she's put the 5 forests on the board.
Yes.
So those 5 triggers are on the stack.
No, they've resolved.
They've resolved.
No, then you'll get 2 triggers because
Yeah.
the new Omnath.
You'll get 2 triggers off of a new Omnath. That makes sense
Correct.
to me.
So, again, the first 5 triggers are all put on the stack, and the first 3 are going to do something. So
Yes.
the 4 life, the mana, the 4 damage. The 4th and 5th are not going to do anything in this case with where the Ephemerate is cast. But interesting to note the timing there. And because the triggers are put on the stack, you could Ephemerate in response and maybe do something.
Sure.
The Fabled Passage is going to again trigger the first one, so gain 4 life, and fetching the forest will trigger to get more mana. And that's because this Omnath has been ephemerated, it's exiled, returned to battlefield, so it is a new object.
Correct.
It's changed zones very briefly. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the whole premise of this deck, and it's what this deck is doing in some form in Modern currently, and it's currently probably one of the best Modern decks to play in. So hype, come play the top deck tournaments. It's going to be Modern. It's going to be great.
Also,
Yeah.
Kamikaze Badger says, and they thought making a textless Omnath was a good idea.
Right. Yeah.
Path to Exile, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. That
Ephemerate
makes sense.
response.
That one I'm totally cool with. Yeah, I get that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Of course,
As
Omnath would also draw you an extra card when it's ephemerated.
Correct.
Which
It
is
would come back. You
one of the
would draw a
reasons
card.
one would want to do this.
Correct.
Anywho, so this is a neat setup.
Ah,
Slightly more complex scenario. So if you can get this, I think we're good. We're playing Commander now.
okay.
Alyssa's commander is Circu, Demure Lobotomist, which of course you'll all know because it's not just me who has an unhealthy fixation on this card. Early in the game, Circu exiled Bernard's Thassa's Oracle.
Okay.
Claire casts Lightning Bolt to deal lethal damage to Circu.
Yep.
In her turn, Alyssa recasts Circu because that's her commander. On Claire's turn, Claire attempts to cast Thassa's Oracle. Is this a valid play?
Okay, hold on. So Circu,
So what is Circu?
Rob, let me read it for you. Circu says, whenever you play a blue spell, remove the top card of target library from the game. Whenever you play a black spell, remove the top card of target library from the game. Wow. Your opponents can't play non-land cards with the same name as a card removed from the game with Circu Demure Lobotomist. So hold on. So nowhere on the card does it say that when Circu dies, the card that was removed from the game comes back to the game. So
No?
So that card's still in exile, the Thassa's Oracle.
Yes, that's Bernard's Thassa's Oracle.
yeah, but it says your opponents can't play non-land cards with the same name as the card removed from the game with Circu Demure Lobotomist. So because Circu removed a Thassa's Oracle from the game, your opponents can't cast another Thassa's Oracle.
Does it not matter
But
that this
but
is
that
a
was
new
only talking
Circu,
about-
Crispy?
Sorry, that would be my interpretation.
Yeah, so the dead Circu was the only thing that had an effect on that Thassa's Oracle. So now that he's gone, that card is just in exile and there's no effects on it, is my understanding.
Okay.
Cool.
So, yeah.
So, Rob, you
So
got that
that's
right.
Sorry, Cora, that's the spanner that I was trying to throw in the works there. It doesn't matter that Circu died. And it's now a new Circu that's out.
Yeah. So that is exactly what the question's boiling down to. Because Circu had exiled this card, but now does the new Circu, which is a new object, remember that?
I see. So the new Circu
And-
doesn't remember having exiled that card.
Yeah. Despite it still being in exile,
Because
the
it needed
Circu does not remember
So
it.
then,
It's
yes,
a little
so then
confusing
Claire would be
because
able to cast her own Thassa's Oracle because the object Circu that is currently in play didn't exile anything.
Correct.
There's a similar standard interaction where you have that the planeswalker that's on the back of whatever card, and that exiles the top two cards or the top card of each library, and then there we go. Yeah, that guy. Yeah,
it's a little different because Tibble gives you an emblem.
Is it?
So Tibble actually bypasses this problem because Tibble gives you an emblem that lets you cast cards exiled with Tibble. So even if Tibble dies, you'll always be able to cast those cards as long as you have the emblem.
Okay.
Because there's currently no way to remove an emblem, right? I mean, emblems are like permanent.
I'm going to defer to Brad on this one because I'm not sure what restarting the game does to emblems. I don't think it does anything.
Well, you restart in the game. It's a brand new game except for the circumstances that led to it. So let me just check the wording on what's it, Khan.
Khan, yeah. It's the only thing I can think of that might do something to that.
Okay, so restart the
Khan
game.
just lets you start with the things exiled.
Leaving in exile all non-aura permanent cards exiled with Khan. Then put those battle cards onto the battlefield under your control. So you start a new game, there's no more emblems.
Okay.
Sweet. So that's, I think, the only way one could do it, just off the top of my head, but I don't know for sure.
Cool. Kamikaze Badger says, this is a very cool example. Thanks, Cora.
You're welcome. I have been trying to make Circo a commander for a very long time. It is still a commander, but it's a really bad deck because of exactly this reason.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
I remember that card when it was standard legal and very expensive. It was a very expensive standard card.
It
like
weirdly was,
expensive.
because we didn't have many of these can't play things at the time. So we had like cranial extraction, and that was kind of it.
Yeah. I remember that. Horrible blue cards.
Okay, so well done. Then just to round off this discussion from my side, I wanted to highlight some cards that can bypass dealing with object changing zones and still being able to count themselves, count other cards in particular ways. So I've just loosely grouped these into a few very unofficial categories. That's just how I like to think of them. And I'm sure I've missed a whole bunch of different ways that things do this. This was just very much off the top of my head last night and today. So first category is cards that refer to themselves using the names. So, for example, we've got on the left here Myriad Phantasm and Approach of the Second Sun. Both of these cards and their effects are going to be checking for copies of cards that have exactly that name. So Myriad Phantasm shuffles into its owner's library. Then if you've done that, it looks through cards until you find Myriad Phantasm and puts all of the other cards revealed this way into the graveyard and puts the Phantasm back on the battlefield. So what's neat is that if you're running 4 of these, you can hit any copy of them, but in Commander, this card is actually pretty neat because you're always going to be trying to hit exactly this copy that goes into your deck. So you mill yourself for a random number of cards every time.
So I'm actually just trying to find this card. Oh, look at that.
Notice how all of these cards are blue.
Well,
Approach of the
so
Second
far.
Sun isn't blue.
So Approach of the Second Sun,
It's a pseudo blue card.
well, similarly, it checks if you've cast another spell named Approach of the Second Sun this game. And normally that might even be the same copy, particularly in Commander again. You only need 1 copy of Approach of the Second Sun. You need to cast it twice. I'm sure most people are quite familiar with how this card works and how just a single copy is enough to easily win a game.
Yeah.
And again, it's changing zones a lot, and it's accounted for this in a way by just specifying, it's just looking for, have you cast a card with that name?
Yes.
Then, kind of interesting example from recent sets, we have Jacob Holken and Spectre and Holken's Insight.
I really like
flip
this
card.
card.
So yeah, it's a pretty neat value engine. What is quite interesting about this card is that the last bit of text on Hawkins' Insight is once during each of your turns, you may play a land or cast a spell from among the cards exiled with this permanent without paying its mana cost. So we're specifying this permanent, but it's a transform card. And because it says this permanent, it'll count cards exiled on the Jacob Hawkins side as well as on the Hawkins Insight, which is just pretty neat. It's a nice way to deal with that, the fact that it does transform.
So that means that even if this card was transformed and it was Jacob Halcon again, you could still, once during each of your turns, play a land or cast a spell from among cards exiled with this permanent.
So not exactly, because it only has that ability when it's a Hawkins Insight.
I see.
But the cards that you've exiled with Jacob Halcon initially to get going are accessible
Right.
by Hawkins Insight,
Right, that's it. That's
despite the different names,
Wow,
because
I
it's
see.
saying this.
And what if you flickered it?
So if you flicker it again, it's going to be a different object. So you're not going to have access to
won't be
any of
this
those
permanent.
cards.
Yeah.
Figure it, you break it.
Cool.
Okay, so we got a question from chat from Tin Street, Eggy, who says, question to the judge. This goes back to approach of the second sun. If I were to Narset's reversal my own approach, what would happen?
So there's some messy interactions like this where it depends how you cast it. I'm just trying to remember Narset's reversal off the top of my head.
Hold on.
So that would work, I believe. Again, I defer to Brad. But
Correct,
because
not-
you've
not
cast...
Okay, so I'm just going to read it for you. Narset's reversal, 2 blue. Copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy.
Okay, it doesn't work. Sorry, Brad. Do you want to do this one? But I think it doesn't work because it wasn't cast from hand.
So if we look at the approach of the second sun, it says if the spell was cast from your hand. Narset's reversal says you copy the spell. The copy is not cast from your hand, so it doesn't get the win-in text.
Okay.
Yeah. So the way around this, which I used to do when approach wasn't standard, was Sunbird's...
Invocation.
What's that called? Yeah, Sunbird's Invocation. So if you cast a Sunbird's Invocation and then an approach, and then hits another approach, that way you win the game.
So let's just...
So wouldn't the Narset's reversal copy resolve first, and then this approach resolve last? Therefore, saying it was cast from hand and it's the second one cast, so then you would win.
No, because you've cast the one that is being copied. So you put the one on the stack, you've cast that, and then the other one is being copied, it's not being cast. So either way around that you break it, it's not going to be, you've cast the second one from your hand, and the first one was cast as well. If that makes sense?
So approach says to be cast. If you cast it from your hand and it's the second one you've cast, then you win the game. Am I right with that wording?
You are, but just remember you never cast a copied spell. It just gets inserted onto the stack. You never cast it. It doesn't matter if a copied approach is your first or your second one. It doesn't work because you haven't physically cast that spell.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Oh, wow. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, silly blue cards.
So then, Cora, can I just quickly go through your approach and Sunbird's Invocation combo, which is actually really, really clever if I'm interpreting it correctly.
Sure.
Approach is a 7-mana card. Sunbird's Invocation is a 6-mana enchantment that says whenever you cast a spell from your hand, reveal the top X cards of your library, where X is that spell's converted mana cost. You may cast a card revealed this way with converted mana cost X or less without paying its mana cost. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So in terms of the way this would trigger, you would cast Approach from your hand. Then if it's not the second time you've played it, you would immediately put it back into your library 7th from the top. No? How does it go?
Unfortunately, no. So you cast Approach from your hand. You go down 7 cards on the cast trigger.
Yes.
With Sunbird's Invocation. If
So
you hit
the
another
trigger for
approach,
Sunbird's
exactly
Invocation
another approach.
is on cast.
Yes.
Okay.
So on cast, you go down 7 cards. If you hit another approach, you cast that one first, and you cast that one not from your hand, but that's okay because you're casting that one first.
Yes.
Okay, so you cast that one for free, you gain 7 life.
Yes.
Then the original one that had the cast trigger of the Sunbirds goes off. And because you've now cast another copy
And
of
this one
Approach
you're
of the
casting
Second
from your
Sun,
hand.
you win the game.
Gotcha.
Yes.
That's pretty slick.
Filthy. Absolutely filthy.
It was a wonderful deck. I don't see why people hated it. Okay, so on to the next category. We have one that I've lovingly termed My Friends Can Carry On Without Me. These are inspired by Zoe's Red deck, which she plays a lot while I'm watching. So it's Robber of the Rich and Rahilda Wanted Cutthroat that are both in historic mono red decks. And they both have abilities that exile cards from your opponent's library, and you can cast those cards anytime you attack with a particular creature type. So for Robber of the Rich, it's whenever you attack with a rogue. For Rahilda, it's whenever you attack with a wolf or werewolf.
Alchemy. Sorry.
Oh, don't worry, Crispin. There's far worse coming.
Oh, great. Sorry, just to jump back quick. No. Okay, I just want to answer another question from Tin Street. Tin Street, no. Even Twincast wouldn't work because you're, like Brad said, you never cast a copy. Twincast says copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. You're not casting the copy. Is that correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Okay. Me, I learned stuff. Cool. Moving on.
Okay, so these cards are just included here because they've given you an avenue to do something where they don't really care about their own names, their own objects. If you flicker one of these and attack, it will still trigger its own ability, which is quite nice. But then they also have this kind of tribal theme going along too, so it doesn't need to be this card or an object with the same name, if that makes sense.
Okay, hold on. When Rahilda Wanted Cutthroat deals combat damage to a player, exile a non-land card from their library at random. During any turn you attacked with a wolf or werewolf. Why is that in the past tense? During any turn you attacked with a wolf or werewolf, you may cast that card and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell.
Past tense because you'd be doing this in your second main phase, normally, depending on timing restrictions of the card you want to cast.
Okay, gotcha. When Rahilda I thought you was coming.
Yeah, so it's the same card as the same effect as Robber of the Rich, except that one's werewolves and this one's rogues.
Kind of. Robber of the Rich is also an attack, and it's the top card, whereas Rahilda is a random card from the library on deal combat damage, which is nice when you flip her, because then she's got double strike. But yeah, functionally very, very similar cards.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
No worries. Everyone happy with this one?
Yeah,
Sure.
makes perfect sense.
Then these are my favorites, because Commander loves to break the whole, everything, I guess, but particularly objects changing zones, because it makes commanders a lot more viable if they can do so. Think about Circu earlier. I love Circu. I'd love to have a Circu commander deck, but Circu is inherently quite bad because it doesn't keep tracking the cards that have been exiled. So these 3 cards all do, and 2 of them are commander staples. So first up we have Rayami, First of the Fallen, which has, if a non-token creature would die, exile that card with a blood counter on it instead. As long as an exiled creature card with a blood counter on it has flying, Rayami, First of the Fallen, has flying. The same is true for First Strike, Double Strike, Death Touch, Haste, Hexproof, Indestructible, Lifelink, Menace, Protection, Reach, Trample, and Vigilance.
Text.
Basically, if anything dies, it gets a counter and is exiled.
So it's breaking the rules with the blood counter.
Yes.
Because every time we recast Rayami, it's just going to be checking which things have blood counters on them.
Yeah.
It doesn't care that this Rayami hasn't exiled them. Like Circu would check to see, has this Circu exiled the thing?
Yeah,
No,
says,
this one's always just checking for which cards have been exiled with blood counters.
It says as long as an exiled creature card with a blood counter on it has, etc., etc., etc. Yeah.
So what's also quite cool about Rayami is if there are 2 Rayami in the same commander game, they would both count each other's cards that have been exiled.
That's quite nuts. I hadn't thought about that.
Then Khan Sign of Urza exiles cards from the top of the library and puts silver counters on them. And then the -1 ability, you can pick a card that's got a silver counter on it and put it into your hand.
Yeah.
So again, if this Khan dies and I play another Khan, I can minus that one to put a card that a different Khan exiled into my hand,
Okay.
as long as it has a silver counter on it.
Right.
And then the last of these three is the Triter, the Silencer, particularly popular in Commander now because there are multiple ways to put hit counters on cards that have been exiled. But a Triter was the first. So when a Triter deals combat damage to a player, exile target creature that player controls and put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more exiled cards with hit counters on them. Then a Triter's owner shuffles the Triter into their library. So Triter's already going to be becoming different game objects all the time with her own ability. But she's going to track up her kills with these hit counters.
Because she's only looking for hit counters. She's not looking for hit counters a particular instance of herself put on them. Put down.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. There's the other Khan as well, though. Okay, no, let's not get into that. That's something else.
Okay.
But this makes these breakages make sense.
Okay, so yeah, these I just call I mark the stuff I care about because they all use counters on stuff in exile.
And then
we have the really nasty stuff.
Very quickly, before we do this, 10th Street would like to argue with Brad. Brad, are you ready to be argued with?
Okay, I feel like I'm in for a world of hurt here.
Okay, so 10th Street says there's a card that is going to disagree with your statement about casting copies. And the card is Arcane Savant. Arcane Savant is a 3/3 human wizard. Before you shuffle your deck to start the game, you may reveal this card from your deck and exile an instant or sorcery card you drafted that isn't in your deck. When Arcane Savant enters the battlefield, copy a card you exiled with cards named Arcane Savant. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost.
Okay, but have a look at what set this card is from.
Yes.
Why?
But it's just the text is saying you can cast it, where copying specifically says you just copy it, you don't cast.
Yeah, so I think there is a difference here. There are a few cards that do let you copy and then cast. Yeah, and that's two different things because just copying by itself is not casting.
Yeah, so this is the exception rather than the rule.
There you go, 10th Street. And you can say Demilich from Adventures in the Forgotten Realms all you like. It's probably the same thing.
We look at Demilich as well.
Yeah, I think the wording specifically is where you it explains everything. If something says copy this thing, then cast it, then you do cast it. But if it just says copy it, then that's not a cast. So you're not casting it. You're just getting an effect.
Okay, now she says, "Be right back. Gotta go build Rayami."
I agree. I'm also building it. That's why it was my first example listed there.
Cool.
Okay.
Brad, if you do find something that needs to be referred back here, I think just jump in. But in the meantime, Cora, do you want to carry on?
So these three cards are three horrible categories that break the game pretty badly. So
we don't have to talk about
Skullbriar.
perpetually because that's not real magic, so it's fine.
Well, okay. So Skullbriar, the Walking Grave,
Sorry, Cora,
has got...
So Rob, I am very interested that you picked perpetually over the Infinity stickers.
I was waiting for that.
It's like Infinity stickers are real magic.
Infinity is real card. Whereas perpetually is only alchemy and only like arena, so they don't really exist. They're not real.
I see. I should have put these in separate slides. I've got some very distracting stuff on the right here.
Yes.
Your Lance appreciating Skullbriar for its annoyingness.
I do love the artwork though. Oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
It's very cool. So Skullbriar's final ability is counters remain on Skullbriar as it moves to any zone other than a player's hand or library.
Wow.
Okay.
Perfectly fair card. Look at that.
It's going to keep its counters when it's in the graveyard.
Fair.
Is this a double masters card? What is that symbol?
It is Double Master's card. It's a reprint. It was on Commander before this.
Okay.
It's a perfectly fair card.
It's a nightmare to deal with. We don't like talking about Skullbriar.
So because
Yes,
it's
here we
your
are.
commander, so because you make Skullbriar your commander, it deals damage, starts getting counters. Somebody kills it, it goes back to the command zone. You bring it back, comes back with all its it's never lost its counters, so it comes back with all its counters still attached. Oh wow, okay, that's a bit miff.
Commander damage 101.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah. That's a pretty sick one.
This and what's that horrible Rakdos card that when it attacks, if it hits you, your life total becomes 1.
Master of Cruelty.
Master of Cruelties.
Yeah.
Find a way to play
That guy's cool.
together.
So then, as Rob has said, we've got Perpetually from Arena. What I've done here is I've also chosen something a bit interesting. I've chosen Davriel's Withering as the pre-errata version for 2 reasons. The first one was, as written, this card was used to just instantaneously win or draw the game on turn 3 with Vesperlark, because there were no ways to stop that combo from constantly resurrecting a perpetually tiny Vesperlark. So you just infinitely loop resurrecting a Vesperlark. And that means if you could stack it with some way to gain or lose life whenever a creature dies, you'd win the game. Otherwise, you'd draw the game, which was very frustrating for a while until they errated this card so it could only target creatures your opponents control. The other reason that I chose the pre-errata version is because this is the one that's actually on Gatherer. So if I go looking for the Oracle text, I'm actually only going to find this card, and that's because currently on Gatherer, they're not updating a whole bunch of stuff, like the alchemy things, or some secret layers have just not been loaded onto Gatherer, which can be a bit frustrating.
They don't update alchemy stuff because they're not real, Cora. That's why.
You're just being mean now.
No, I just think that obviously my feelings are hurt.
We get it.
I don't like the fact that there are cards that exist that we can't play in paper.
Fair enough.
Look, it does get a little frustrating because, like, I've been doing a lot of Baldur's Gate draft on Arena and with Alchemy, and it's great fun. Like, it's a really great set to draft, but I still will forget perpetually. I'll be like, oh, I'll just bounce my creature that has double team, forgetting that double team is perpetually lost once you've triggered it.
Cool.
So I haven't actually done that yet, but it's always I really want to do this thing because that's how magic works, but then it's not how this works in this case because perpetually is a thing. And then the last example here is kind of quite timeless because we're in the middle of spoiler season for Infinity, to those who didn't know. And I'm here to tell you that we're getting stickers.
Yay!
And that stickers are going to be legal on some cards in Commander and Legacy. So have fun with that.
Oh my word. Exalted.
So stickers can change a card's name, can add art, they can give an ability, and they can change the power and toughness.
Okay, Kamikaze
And
Baby says, wait, what?
You spend some ticker points, I guess they're called, I'm not exactly sure, to alter cards in this way. And before somebody complains about it, you can't stick your opponent's stuff. You have to own the card to do so. So that's one good thing at least. But annoyingly, this is something that judges are going to need to know about because it could theoretically come up in Legacy and Commander games.
Bigger class.
Which
It
is
says,
weird.
so it could actually add the weight rule if there was a weight sticker?
Yeah, so I've already seen a question asked, what happens if there's a pithing needle naming Jace the Mind Sculptor, and I use a card that gives me a sticker and I put dark in front of Jace the Mind Sculptor. So I have dark Jace the Mind Sculptor. Does that bypass Pithing Needle?
Oh dear.
And at this stage, we're not sure. We're waiting to have further confirmation on how stickers work exactly. But yeah.
With Infinity, sorry to interrupt you, Cora. With Infinity, there's only some cards, or there are some cards that will be eternal format legal, and then there's some that are not going to be. And
That's
I would
correct.
assume that the sticker cards are just going to be not legal.
Unfortunately, that's not the case. There's already been a few spoiled that are legal in Legacy and Commander.
Can I also just, I mean, I would imagine that whether or not you play them in your play group would be a rule 0 conversation.
No, because it's actually officially allowed.
Really?
Yep.
So if they're legal cards, they're legal. You know,
They are
there's-
legal in Legacy and Commander. Somebody could pitch up to your Legacy tournaments and have some of these, and you would need... what's annoying as well is you have to have 10 sheets of stickers, and you randomize and pick 3 at the start of the game or tournament. I'm not sure which exactly.
Oh my word, this is going to get very...
So it's going to be interesting.
This is going to make it even more complicated. Look, Rob,
It's,
there
look,
you go.
it's
Your
probably
dreams have
not
come
going to
true.
be... It's probably not going to be something that happens much at all, but we have to wait and see.
Rob, you know, then we can say that the overflowing text of alchemy and the complicatedness of alchemy has found its way into paper magic.
It'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, I think we'll have to see how that one plays out. Anyway, is that it?
And then just
Wow.
just to conclude, I've got some app logos here. As I was finishing up my training for judge stuff, I saw these apps being advertised. I'd highly recommend them if you're interested in the rules. If you want some kind of reference software, each of these are pretty cool. I'm quite partial to Judge Core version 2 and BugGo. Not so much Monobox, but that's just personal preference. They each do different things, but all of them have the comprehensive rules and various rule documents in them that are easily searchable, and it just makes for pulling up rulings really, really easy. You can also pull up Oracle text with, I think, all of them. And stuff like BugGo will also let you store decks and binders and trade stuff if you really want to, and even comes with daily news from various Magic-related websites if you're into that kind of thing, which is a little too much for me, but still cool that it has it.
The one that I use is MTG Familiar. It's an app as well that has got a lot of nifty. It's got a trading app. It's got a gatherer app, and it's also got a judges. It's got rules and also a judges corner for like
Nice.
dealing with interactions and stuff like that. So that's quite cool as well.
I'm busy downloading BugCo now.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I also use that same app, Rob. It's a fantastic one.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty useful for just pulling things up. It's what I was using to get the rulings wrong on Wednesday.
I actually didn't know before today that Judge Core had a version 2. That was the greatest judge app that ever existed in version 1 until the developer retired. But it's nice to see that they've finally brought out a version 2. So
I really like it. The only gripe I have with it is it doesn't seem to download the images of cards too. And sometimes I really want to just see that. So I'm not sure. I haven't dug around too much in the settings. I've just used it for pulling up some random rules, reading up on some stuff, and checking Oracle text.
Rob, what was the name of the app that you use? The Familiar?
MTG Familiar.
MTG Familiar.
Yeah, it's really solid. It's useful. Useful on-the-go app that you can just check things out.
Why am I not finding it? Oh.
Are you on Crispy? Android or
Might be.
iPhone? Not sure if it's an iPhone thing. It might be Android only.
Okay, well, I got the bug code, so that should be all right then.
Could be.
Okay. All right, that's cool. Cora, thank you so much. I mean, that was like way more than I expected. And I think those of you in chat will be as blown away by what we've done here tonight that I am. I think this is something we should do more often, where we get to talk about strange interactions and new cards and stuff like that for the community. Get it out there for people to know what's happening, especially if we're going to be having to deal with things like stickers and whatnot in the future. But I don't know about the rest of you or those of you in chat, but I've had a fantastic time this evening. I've learned a lot about card interactions that I didn't know before. And also it's nice to have your brain picked a little bit and tweaked in places that you hadn't thought of. So looking at different cards and how they interact so that you can get a better sense of what you're doing. I will say that one of the things that I've enjoyed most about our time as EGG and Command This is the fact that I have become a better Magic player because of the game and because of interactions with people like Cora and with Brad and with Rob and all of these people who bring their knowledge to the games that we play, and we learn as we go. And I think that's fantastic. And it does mean that our level of Magic as players is increasing, which is both cool and scary because it means that we're going to be eventually starting to build some cool decks that are really worthwhile and have fun. Like, I mean, playing against Cora is always an issue because we know that something in Cora's deck is going to do something nuts at some point and go mad. And then there's going to be a gazillion tokens or a gazillion somethings or something, or not, and then we're all just going to die quietly. You know?
Or I could just die too. I'm pretty sure the last time I was on Command This, I just got wrecked. So
This has happened. But it's always fun.
I don't believe it. I never saw it.
it was the Pride special. You should have been there. It was great fun.
Yeah.
I was playing a Dungeon Master deck.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun. It really had a lot of cool interactions, but was not the most competitive of decks.
But it was good fun. And I think that's also part of what we're trying to do is help people have more fun, and knowing the rules and knowing how the interactions work makes the game more fun because you don't feel like you've been cheated out of something or somebody did something wrong or underhanded or whatever the case may be. So I think tonight's been great. I want to thank Brad. I want to thank Cora for coming on and chatting to us from the judges' point of view. I want to thank Rob for bringing up the discussion and pushing us into having the discussion after we got the rulings after the game last week, saying that he would like to discuss it further. And I hope you guys out there watching have enjoyed it. If you have, let us know if you'd like to see more of this kind of content, interacting with judges over rules and cards and what's coming up. Please let us know, because I think it's something that I'd like to do more of. I think it would help me a lot.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I want to make a comment quickly. I just want to say that I've been playing for over 20 years, and there are still interactions that confound me, things that I don't understand, or things that I think I understand, but I don't understand properly. So that's what's great about this game, is that there's always something to learn.
Yeah.
That it's not just, there's never just easy. Maybe on the next judges discussion, we can have Cora explain layering to people.
Ken actually has already asked for that.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm not qualified to do all the layers.
Of course you're qualified to do all the layers. Layers are easy.
Layer 7's easy.
Just so our panelists are aware, we have had a significant positive response to having more judges episodes. We've had upvotes and +1s and all kinds of cool stuff. So if you're keen, judges, we'd love to make this a regular thing where we get together and discuss some topics that the community is asking about. So,
and we'd also need Brad to explain banding.
No, that's where we draw the line.
Come on, Brad. That is the one rule that no one actually knows how it works. Everyone thinks they do, but no one does. No one alive today knows how banding works.
Go.
I saw someone in the Judge Academy Discord yesterday just being like, "Oh, your banding's the easy bit. Wait until we get into this other thing." I'm like, "Oh, okay." There is much to learn.
Fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
This game's great.
Yeah, no, it wasn't voted the world's most complicated card game for nothing, but that's okay. Expert Opinions, says Zoe. It sounds like a great title for a show. I like it.
Crispy, more than happy to join you on future episodes if this is the kind of content that people want.
Great.
It's been fun.
Gosh, what are you doing, Rob?
I got a creaky chair, sorry.
Okay. Bigger Clausen says
Arthritis.
they've got stickers to replace banding. We don't need banding anymore. Oh dear. Okay, so just on that, I just want to like quickly just put a little couple of things out on the radar for people. Don't forget, at the end of August, we've got this incredibly cool event happening at Top Deck. It's the qualifier, the regional qualifier for the Pro Tour vibes that's happening. It's back. If you're not sure of what that is, go check out the Top Deck website, store.topdecksa.c. Rob, I always get this. Hey?
Store.topdecksa.co.za. Or you can check out our page with the Top Deck logo on Facebook.
Because we don't know what we're calling it. Explaining the rules. Oh, wow, sorry. So don't forget that. That's coming up. That's going to be a lot of fun. Apparently, we'll have an interest in it. Well, I don't know. I'm going to leave that up to Brad and the rest of the judges to decide about the whole judging thing. But EGG will be there. We're going to be streaming the event, broadcasting it as best we can, etc., etc. So don't miss out on that. On top of that, tomorrow I actually have a day where I'm able to sit down and, now that I've got work things out of the way, thanks to the delay from our house move, I'm going to be sitting down and working out the final schedule for the National Commander League, which I'm then going to put out to the stores tomorrow afternoon, and we'll hopefully get everybody to sign off on those dates. And so we can push forward with that one, which is going to be a hell of a lot of fun, I reckon. And then don't forget, in September, after the awesome event at Top Deck, there's going to be another awesome event, this time at Comic-Con on the 24th of September. We've got this massive modern event for 60 players. Your entry is free. All you've got to do is buy your ticket for the day at Comic-Con. So the 24th of September, go to the Easy Gaming Group website, register yourself with your ticket stub number, and you'll be entered into that tournament, of which I can tell you right now that let me just repeat that, part of first prize is a draft booster box of Double Masters 2022. So the prize support from our incredible partners, Unplug Yourself, is outstanding for this particular event. So yeah, don't miss out on that one. Registration is open. And then just to say that we're back on Wednesday night with some more Command This, with some rules that we can get wrong and set up some content for the next EGGPod.
In future, I'm just gonna sit and be quiet and stay in my corner.
Chat. You must chirp. You see, Rob doesn't chat. Rob chirps.
Yep.
Which is all fine, because the chirping is what's got us here. And I think it's fantastic that we have the kind of interactions that we can have where we can make these decisions, find out that we were wrong, come back afterwards, go, okay, let's figure out where we went wrong and learn from those and hopefully not do them again.
Can I just say also, it was really funny because I was playing D&D at the time while you were playing Command This, and I just see these messages popping up in the judge group about the scenario, and I'm just like expecting anyone else to answer it in the meantime. And my session finishes, say bye to the players, open up, and the question's still there. I'm like, okay, let's do this.
It was very
good fun.
No, it was great. It was lekker. And it was good to get the answer the way we did. So there we go. Kamikaze Badger says, thank you, Rob, for pretending to make a mistake just so we could have an awesome stream.
It's very kind.
Very kind of you, Rob.
I know, right? You found me out.
Oh, boy. Okie dokie. So that's very cool. Cora, thank you very much. Yes, Rob.
We planned this from the start. Myself and Ty, we worked out this whole interaction. We put it all into play. I even told him which cards to put into his deck so that
and
we
you
could
guys
get to
knew
this.
that at some point I'd play that chain reaction, and you could,
exactly,
you could,
or something similar. You know,
Okay.
we knew that something similar was
Listen,
going.
you're extra class.
Survived a hug by Ty. It's difficult.
No.
The new improved Rob.
What?
A bigger class that might just have made an enemy here. I'm not going to tell you what he said, but it had your name and the word
I can see it.
And the word islands.
Niels, just because you do like karate and stuff now doesn't mean I won't come find you, bro. I know where you live.
Are there going to be Theros Islands as well? The Pokemon Islands?
I think I just checked your mouth.
Just in your mouth, just a little bit. Anyway, okay, before this gets completely out of hand, I think we should say goodnight, and then Rob can go puke in a corner somewhere if that's what he chooses to do. But
Already done.
again, just a huge thank you to Cora for what you did tonight. The prepping those cards and those possible scenarios, fantastic. Thank you so much. Brad, thank you for joining us and for jumping in on some of the other topics, particularly the ones that were brought up by 10th Street. Rob, thank you for joining us and for giving us the opportunity to have this discussion. And to you people watching out there, you all are amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time out to listen to us talk about this crazy cardboard crack game that we love so much. And like I say, if you do like this kind of content, we'll give you more. Don't forget, if you do like what we're doing, go check us out on Patreon. Your support always helps us do cool new stuff. So www.patreon.com/EasyGamingGroup. Become the Eggy you never knew you always wanted to be.
And thanks for that shout, you guys.
Dude, I'll shout at you off air. I don't do it in public. That's just rude.
Okay. And during D&D, you shout at me all the time.
The DM has to.
The DM has, that's right. The DM has to.
But I'm not even the problem.
Okay.
That's how they express love.
The more I shout at you, the more you know I love you.
Nah.
Okay? No, okay.
Nah.
It's not going. Okay. But on that note, good night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Cora, thank you. Brad, thank you. Rob, thank you. Chat, you guys rock.
Thanks, guys.
Have a fantastic evening. Everybody
Bye.
stay healthy, stay safe. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Ciao.